Hi everyone, I'm back and I want to make a video talking about while we're waiting on our promises. And I don't think anybody really likes to wait. It's not the most fun thing, but it's inevitable. How are we going to have any faith if we don't have to wait for the promise? So some of you might even be questioning, do I even really have a promise? Does God even make promises like this? This seems too good to be true. I think a lot of times we really do think that. We think it's too good to be true. And we just don't believe in that God is that good. You know, the devil can easily convince us that we're just being delusional and believing some lie from the enemy when really it is a promise from God. And if it just keeps coming up over and over and over again, you know, you've tried to put it on the altar, you've tried to give it up to God, you've even maybe given it up for years, you weren't doing anything pertaining to it, and then now here you are again, it's been reignited. He's got your imagination inspired again around this one particular thing or this idea or whatever the promise is for you. And anyone questioning, does God actually give personal promises like this? Absolutely. We can just look at Abraham, the promise for Abraham and Sarah. He was promised a son with him and Sarah. They tried to do it their own way, obviously, and they created Ishmael. And I think a lot of us, we have probably even tried to make it happen ourselves, and we couldn't. So maybe that's what made us give up hope. But the thing about this is we are not going to be able to make it happen by ourselves. Now we're going to have to be obedient and do the things that God's asking us to do in the interim, but it's not going to be by our strength or our might. It's going to be by His Spirit. And I think that it's easy to not see anything externally happening, but the truth is God's not going to get us into the rooms He has for us or get us to the promises that He has, and when He hasn't worked out our character yet. So a lot of the work, you might not see anything externally going on, but He's working on you not raging at people, or you know, us not being in a spirit of offense, constantly getting offended by people. So He's working all these inner things out that you might be working a job that has nothing to do with the promise, but the people there are getting on your nerves all the time, and you're having to learn to be patient and to not react to people, but to let stuff roll off of you, and to just know that God is ultimately the judge, and He will get justice for you, but it's not for us to go out and try to get justice for ourselves. And I read the book Abandonment to Divine Providence when I was in this season where, I mean, the promise was not even in my head anymore. I honestly had just completely given up on it. I thought it wasn't for me. And that book, Abandonment to Divine Providence, really helped me, because it's just talking about, you can know if you're truly submitted to God, wherever you are, He's allowing you to be there. So just do the best you can with a spirit of excellence with what He's given you right now. Treat the people around you kindly. Go help somebody. Go volunteer somewhere. If you have children, obviously, that takes up a lot of time. So just pour into that. You know, these are all character building things anyway, if we're helping other people. And I say all that to also say, if you are in a situation where the dream looks completely dead, and maybe you realize you did settle or you made a wrong turn or whatever, I admit that I did exactly that. And I got myself into a situation that I, quite frankly, probably wouldn't have got myself out of, but I knew I had settled. I knew I made a wrong turn, and God got me out of the whole thing. I didn't even do it. I didn't even know He was going to get me out of it. Suddenly I was just out of it. And looking back, I'm thinking, what the heck was I doing? And I'm sure He was thinking that too, but I didn't know how to walk with God. You know, I've never had a good example in front of me, and I'm trying to figure this thing out. And I think He has so much grace and mercy on our lives, and He'll even make a way out of a situation we've got ourselves into that has nothing to do with our destiny. And He'll bring as much good out of it as He can until there's no more good to be brought. And then I truly feel like He will create an exodus for us. And I say that knowing that these situations, when we went into them, We didn't just say, I know he's telling me no, I'm doing it anyway. It was like, I think he's saying yes, I'm trying to walk with God. And there's so much nuance to these things, because a lot of us, we can't become the people, I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago before I went through all of that. And I don't know how I could have become this person without going through all that. So I'm not saying God gave me that. I absolutely don't think he did, but I think he let me go through that so that I could be who I am now and not make that same mistake again. And so I'll end saying this, that I had a dream recently where in the dream someone was competing with me for the promise. And in the dream I had so much peace. I just thought, okay, they can compete with me. I'm not going to get into a competitive, envious, jealous spirit, because I already know what God promised me. So I'm just going to keep doing my thing over here, and he's going to make it happen. And the truth is that if you have told anyone your promise, which I would be very careful at who you do tell, you're not obligated to tell anybody this. You don't owe anybody that. But if you do tell someone and they say, yeah, that's impossible for that to happen, if that happened, that would be a miracle. And I say, yeah, I know. It would be. The only way this is going to happen if God makes this happen. Now, he will have you start doing things that are pertaining to that promise, and you have to start walking your gift out a lot of times. Just, it's uncomfortable, it's vulnerable, and some of us will be at that point where we're doing that. Some of us aren't yet. Just whatever God is telling you to do, being obedient to that. But it will be by his Spirit. It will be miraculous, and you're not going to be able to finagle things and control the whole situation. So us just giving up control now, and God's told me things that people's hearts would change toward me, and I thought, oh, they're going to change in a good way toward me, but really they turned against me, but ultimately pushed me toward the promise. So sometimes I misunderstand even what God's telling me, but he's still working it ultimately for the good and getting me to where he's going. So I hope this helps somebody, and just to know that, just keep having hope. If this thing keeps coming up in your spirit, he keeps exciting your imagination to something, just keep going. You've likely laid it down more than once. I don't know, maybe you haven't yet, but I definitely have. And it's actually increased my faith, because I'm not the one who keeps stirring this dream up within me. He keeps doing it. So it gives me more faith that, okay, now I need to not make... We have a little visitor in the back. Now I need to not keep making mistakes like I did that he just got me out of. When I go to God, I need to actually listen for what he's telling me to do, because now looking back, and I even acknowledged it before he got me out of the situation, I went to him one day and I started thinking back, and I thought, Lord, I didn't really listen for your answer. I asked you quickly and I did whatever I wanted, and I don't want to do that anymore. I want to come to you and I want to ask you, and I want to wait until you actually tell me. I need to be willing to accept the yes or the no. And at that period, I was so broken and hurt and desperate. I wouldn't have listened. I would have just thought, yes, of course he wants this for me. And the way it all happened, the enemy loves to just mimic what God does. And so, a lot of times the enemy will even bring things with signs, but it's still the counterfeit, still not the real thing. That's why I think in this waiting, God's really developing our prayer life, our discernment, laying down the promise where you've laid it down so many times that he just keeps telling you to pick it up. It grows your faith, because like Abraham, you laid Isaac down on the altar. You said, okay, kill it. I don't know. This is yours to do with whatever you want. And that's where he can get our heart posture right, where our motivation is in alignment with him, and we're not desiring the promise for any other reason other than he promised it to us, and it's what his ultimate will is for our lives. So I'm praying for y'all. I hope this encourages someone, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.